Alrighty folks, we are back on Tier Maker, taking another look at the tier list. It's been a little over 2 weeks actually, since we initially released our version 0.19.1 look at the tier list. Since then, we have got a lot more experience with some of these heroes. We've seen some more or some less of certain of these heroes, and we have advanced into a higher elo. So when I originally made that tier list, I was at the top of Bronze 1 and was kind of targeting a tier list towards the unranked or standard matches through the top of Bronze, maybe into Silver 3 range. And that tier list was received pretty well. Got some good comments on it, on how people think certain heroes should be moved around. And that video also went quite long. We gave a nice explanation of why we put everyone where we did. And this time we are going to update it. So we've got the same tier list put in here already and filled out the way that we had it in the prior episode. And we're going to make some adjustments. This time we're looking more towards the middle of Bronze, upper Bronze through Silver and maybe Gold 3 range of the elo. A little bit higher skilled players on average, and a little bit more proficient at playing their heroes or their mains. So the meta hasn't shifted too much here. We haven't had a patch in the last couple weeks, or since I made that. We're still on version 0.19.1, and we're probably about 2-ish weeks, maybe 3 at the most, out from receiving another update patch and a new hero release potentially. So we're going to go ahead and take an updated look at this tier list now, so that you know where heroes are standing here for the last couple weeks on this patch, and going forward what we can expect to see. So going through the tiers real quick before we move anyone around. We've got S tier, must pick or ban. You're going to see them picked or you're going to see them banned in most games. A tier, happy to see picked on my team. So this is, top heroes at every role pretty much. B tier, above average, heroes that you can expect to do well but not quite able to compete with some of the S and A tier picks. C tier, consistent performers, heroes that I don't mind seeing on my team, but I'm not holding the highest expectations for. D1 tier, lower end picks that I don't have high hopes for when I see them on my team, or I feel confident playing against in most matches. D2 tier, which is the one tricks or situational picks where they can be exceptionally good if the person playing the hero is good with them, but they may be more difficult to use or on average have a harder time performing. But again, they could range anywhere in the pack if you're just exceptionally good with them. And then F tier, needs buffs. We only had Bellica in it here on the first time around. So let's get right into moving some heroes around, and then at the end we'll go through real quick and give a little explanation of why everyone is where they're at. But we'll start at the bottom and work our way up on where we want to move people around. So first off, Bellica, I think it was probably slightly unfair to put her in the needs buffs tier. I really think most of the heroes are balanced, and she probably doesn't need too many buffs to be, if you buff her too much, she's just going to shoot to A tier, because they did give her a little bit more damage. We are going to move her up here to the actual D1 lower end picks tier. I have seen some Bellicas do well, but in late game she does do a lot of damage, and she can still combo people pretty hard, especially for a support. Probably wouldn't recommend playing her in mid still, because there's just too many better options at mid, but that is where we're going to move her. One trick situational tier, I think this is pretty good. Wraith, Revenant, Kalari, not the easiest heroes to use. You can get a lot out of them. I've seen them go off for sure. I've recently seen them go off, if anything, but you got to be good with them to get anything out of them, if we're being honest. So D1 tier, I think first off, we've got to get Argus out of here. We'll put Argus up here into the C tier. He does hit extremely hard. You've got to be good with him. You've got to manage your mana with him. But he does hit extremely hard at the mid lane role, and he can still play support well. Similar to Bellica, you're looking at a high damage support, high pressure. And if you're able to manage his mana, you can just burn people down from range. Any hero that's got this much long range capabilities deserves to not be in the lower end picks tier, for being honest, because I've seen him hit people through the jungle corridors from way out, and just a great finisher overall. We've also got Richter down here. Richter, you've probably seen him in a lot more of your games. We're going to actually take Richter all the way up to the B tier. I think as far as supports go, now that we're up here in this higher elo of the upper silver range to getting close to gold, more people are better with Richter, and hitting those pulls can be really devastating. The pull into the silence, into the ult, can just completely shut down a carry if he's able to grab him, a mid laner if he's able to grab him. It holds the jungler out of the fight for a long enough time to where he can get deleted. Just a stronger hero than we gave him credit for. Down in the bronze tier, people are not very good with him, and you've got to be able to hit the pulls to make any big use out of him. But he has benefited quite a lot from the health items buff. So he feels a lot tankier late game and mid game, and he gets that health scaling on his little electrocute aura as well. So a stronger hero than we gave him credit for. I think he deserves to be on the B tier as far as supports go. What other supports do we have in this tier right now? Like FaZe, comparing him to Narbash, I think he's more impactful than Narbash most games. So we're going to slot him up here to the B tier. Definitely an above average support. Probably playable in solo and jungle more now than prior to the item buffs as well. So that's going to do it. Rampage and Sevarog got to stay down here. They're just not quite it right now. C tier. We have got to move Muriel up to B tier. Muriel, those nerfs that she got prior to this version, 0.19.1, and during this patch definitely hurt her damage, but she's still a very impactful support. If you're good at landing the shields at clutch moments, the shields can mean more than the Narbash healing. And there's just a ton of good support items that proc off of shields still, that just really make her valuable. The universal ult justifies her not being in the C tier realistically, because her ulting from duo lane into solo to secure a kill or save your solo laner, either way, you do that a couple times in the early game, and you're really going to help your team out a lot. Late game, not as impactful. The damage is going to be coming out so fast, they're going to burn through the shields that she's putting on characters, but she's still very impactful and does a lot of damage for a support. A lot of pressure early game, so we got to move her out of the C tier. And I think that's all we really want to move out of the C tier. I think all of these are good. I think, Argus is definitely borderline. When you start seeing more people that are good with Argus, it's tempting to put him up into a higher tier, but I know he's just got a lot of competition at the mid lane role. So we're going to leave him down here, and we're going to call that good for the C tier. Now, going up into the B tier, Murdoch, I think, is not very fair to be in the B tier. I think he's on par with Twin Blast, and not significantly better. Twin Blast realistically could be even better than Murdoch in most cases. Neither of them have any sort of crazy scaling abilities that really push them into the level of the top tier carries. And I really don't think either of them are even necessarily on the par with Kira's late game damage either. So Murdoch can be good. You hit 3 across the map ults before the 10-minute mark or before the 12-minute mark, or you hit a ult into a big Fangtooth fight and secure it or whatever, and you get ahead. He is still going to do extreme damage late game, but that requires you to hit his ult a couple times in the early game to really get ahead. And he just doesn't have any sort of insane pressure in the lane phase. If you're really good with him and you're throwing mines at people's feet and catching them, then he could perform, better. But by that standard, any hero can perform better if you're really good with him. So we'll put him down here on par with Twin Blast. Returning to the B tier, we've got Quang. Now, people were commenting before on the first one that Quang deserves to be higher, and I can agree with you, Quang definitely does deserve to be higher. A lot of people have been putting him in the S tier. He is just extremely good. We're going to slot him up here at the very top of the A tier right now, because he still can get pressured. There is competition at the role, so I don't want to put him in the absolute must-picker ban. In the silver elo, you're never going to see him banned. I mean, I've never seen Quang banned one time, and he's definitely not picked in every single game, so put him at the top of A tier. He is very strong. We recently did a video on some Quang build testing, where we tested an armor Quang versus a health Quang build, and both of them did feel very strong. Just a well above average hero. I'm happy to see him picked on my team every time he is picked. The skill gap is there, but even if you're not that skilled with him, you can still get, you can still play him comfortably, and he's not going to hamper you in any way. So, but you do have to know how to build him, because he builds a little weird being a magical solo laner and magical tank type solo laner at that. So, gotta move him to the top of A. Looking back at the B tier, we've got FaZe. I think FaZe has got to go up to the A tier. I'm happy to see a FaZe picked on my team just about every time, and I know playing against FaZe in the laning portion of the match, the lane phase particularly, she is going to be a pain. The long range slow to root is just hard to get out of, and the pull and the buffs that she gives to your carry can make someone who's just average at carry or just a little bit above average at carry go off and perform extremely well in a match. So just for the supporting potential that she brings, and the lane phase pressure that she brings, and the ganking potential, if duo rotates out early, she can just hit roots on people. The peel is insane. So gotta move FaZe up to the A tier. I think she's definitely deserving of that. If you've played against a lot of phases, which you surely have in duo lane, you know that she is a pain to play against. So taking her up here. Looking back at the B tier, we've got Countess. I'm going to move Countess down to the C tier. I think Countess does bring a lot to the table, but she has major competition at her roles. I mean, it's hard to justify picking her in jungle a lot of the time unless you're just exceptionally good with her, one trick status. And at mid lane, she does have good poke, she does have good mobility, but her competition is just insane at mid lane right now. So I think on par with Argus as to how worried I am when I see one on the other team, or how excited I am to see one on my team. So just a consistent performer, not too much more. Does have good late game scaling and lifesteal, so she gets a couple buffs. She could move up very quickly, but you got to be good with her to really get in and get out safely with her. So we will slot her right here at the C tier, consistent performer without a doubt. Looking back up at B tier, I think this is good. Greystone, as much as I want to put him in A, I just know that he's not quite on the tier of his competition. Gadget and Howitzer are on par with each other pretty well. Kira, I think, is a step above Twin Blast and Murdoch, even though her ult is not very impactful most of the time. She does do great damage, and the slowdown is very nice. Seraph, I think, is about on par with Greystone, and Muriel and Richter, I think, are about on par at the support role. So that's going to do it for our B tier corrections. Let's take a look up here at A tier. We definitely need to move some people around here. We've got Faye. I think I'm going to go ahead and take Faye down. I think she is more on the level of Gadget and Howitzer. There's a lot of competition, like I've said, at the mid lane role. And although the Fae does bring insane burst and good team fight control, you could realistically say that same thing about Howitzer and Gadget. I don't think she brings better team fight control than Gadget. Both of their slowdowns are very good, and I don't think she brings as much consistent long-range burst, obviously, as Howitzer. So I think that's on par. She needs to be just in the above average tier. You know, still above Argus or Countess for sure at mid, but not on the competition of some of these other mid laners. Looking through here, we've got Steel. I'm going to move Steel down here to B tier. Steel seems stronger, or maybe I should say was stronger, prior to the health item buffs. Well, the health item buffs benefit him, don't get me wrong, but when we were more in the meta where heroes were getting blown up faster and attack speed was more insane and tanks were just getting melted, it was nicer to have a Steel on your team than say obviously a Richter or a Muriel, because you need that wall and you need those CC interruptions just to have a break from the damage more than you need the tankiness. So now that tankiness is more in and you're not getting melted as fast, I think he's probably on par with Richter and Muriel. Does have the option to play him pretty effectively in solo lane, trading with those shields that he gets up from his passive. And he does dictate team fights very well, similar to the way that Richter does. So we'll slot him here in the above average tier. I think it's pretty clear that he's a step above like Narbash most of the time, but on par with Richter and Muriel for sure. Now let's look back up here. We've got Aurora. I think I've got to move Aurora up. I mean, the amount of times that I've seen an Aurora, whether it's solo lane or in jungle, just go absolutely off, it has been surprising. She got the nerfs to her passive, but she's still very strong, still clears pretty fast. The mobility is just insane. That slide across the ice ability, the fact that it gives you such good mobility, verticality for getting away over walls, the creating of the wall to cut off paths, it's just an incredible ability. And the circular line root is also an incredible ability and can just disrupt team fights. Anytime you can root multiple squishy targets, or even root the front liner to separate them off of their back line, that is just a very strong ability. Still getting played quite a bit. You're almost never going to see her banned, but you will see her picked in almost every upper silver range ranked match, because now that people have kind of figured out how to use her, you can play her at support, jungle, solo. She can do it all. Gotta be in the S tier for me. And also in the A tier, we've got Decker. I'm gonna move Decker up to the S tier. Although she is, I would say, bottom of S tier, very close to FaZe, I think there is a separation here. I vote for Decker to be banned in almost all of my ranked matches, because a Decker can be so impactful that it is hard to get away from. Having a stun with ridiculous range, having the wall that she can put up very frequently, the double jump to get away from positions in the jungle, or get around the wall over to gold buff in the duo lane. She just brings a lot to the table. Good clear pressure, good slowdown. Gotta have her in the S tier. Again, you're almost never going to see her banned. You will see her occasionally banned, but if she's not banned, she's probably getting played in support, because massive impact all throughout the game. Lane pressure, team fights late game, walling off objectives in the jungle, preventing escapes, peel, she's got it all. So S tier support for me kind of makes sense. There's no other supports up here. Like I said, she is very close to FaZe, and I think the majority of matches she's going to be a step above the Richter, Muriel, and Steel range of supports. So S tier for me for sure. Now let's take another look at A tier. I'm tempted to put Grux up here, but I know he's not necessarily that good. Although you will see him picked or banned in probably 90+% of your Silver 1 ELO range ranked games. Sparrow, Drongo, Iggy, Gideon. Yeah, I think this is good. I think this is good for A tier. I don't think we need to move anybody out of that. Let's take a look up at S tier. First off, Morgesh. We've got to get Morgesh out of the S tier. She is very strong and very annoying to play against, but you're pretty much never going to see her banned. I guess occasionally you will see her banned, but and when she's not banned, she is going to be picked almost all the time, because the amount of burst damage and tick damage that she does with her ult to finish people off is very impressive. But realistically, I think she's on par with Iggy and Gideon. And, you know, if I see a Gideon on my team, I'm probably just as excited as seeing a Morgesh. Iggy, I would say, is slightly below them. I would say Morgesh and Gideon are probably your top two, but Iggy is right there on the edge for sure. Now we'll go back up here to S tier. This looks good. I'm actually going to take Grim out. I think Grim, he is still very strong, but is he necessarily stronger than Sparrow and Drongo? I would actually probably put Drongo as the top right now. Grim is good, it's just he suffers from not having the mobility. If he doesn't get ahead early, or he just falls behind, he's hard to get in and out of fights with that lack of mobility. Very high skill gap for sure if you're good at activating his assault mode at the right times and hitting the knockback disruption blast at the right times. And he does have a good ult, but he doesn't have an ult that's gonna just completely swing team fights like Drongo and Sparrow have, and doesn't come with any mobility like Drongo's ult. Sparrow also doesn't have mobility, but she's got good range, so if you're good at positioning with her, you can get a lot out of her, and her ult is just completely a game changer. So both of them a strong passive, but I think all three of these carries are realistically on par with each other. And then looking back up to S tier, we now are left with just Chimera, Terra, or Aurora and Decker. And I'm kind of tempted to bring Chimera out, but it's definitely close. It's very close, realistically. I would say he's bottom of S tier, top of A tier range. Just like you could make the argument for Zarus and Quang to be bottom of S tier, top of A tier range, but I think I like that orientation a little bit better. So, let me go through here and see if I want to order these any differently. Sevrog's more top of D1 tier. He has better potential late game. This tier is not even worth ordering because if you're good with them, you're good with them. C tier. I like Crunch and Fang Mao near the top of C. I like Narbash up here as well. I think Twin and Murdoch are probably right here above Shinbi. No, they're probably... Shinbi does bring a lot to the table. She is very hard to catch out. Argus is probably more the middle of C tier. And Countess is probably more down here at lower C tier. B tier wise, I think you would probably put... I like Greystone at the top of B. I think the mid laners are all very strong. I think Kira is decently strong. Richter, I would probably actually place more middle of B tier because he is very impactful. And I would probably place Steel above Seraph most of the time. I'm happy to see Seraph's for sure on my team, but I don't really have super high hopes for him most of the time. Doesn't bring like anything super crazy to the table, not an insane passive or anything like that. A tier, I think for sure Quang is the top of A tier. He is extremely strong, right there with Zarus. Both of them can play jungle or solo very well. Zarus' cage is insane. Grux, I mean, I'm not kidding you when I say people will argue that I need to put Grux in D tier or in C tier. Go play in Silver 1 lobbies and tell me Grux isn't banned almost every single game. This man, he gets so much use. The bleed damage is real. The mobility is decent for sure. Definitely if you're playing against a team that's holding their stuns for him and stunning him, you know, when it's appropriate, he can get melted fast. But if he's holding his ult, I mean, he's going to counter a lot of solo laners when they try to dive on him anyway. So he's up here. Like people want to say that he's not up here. He's up here. I know he got nerfs. You don't see him played in jungle nearly as much, but he is still very strong, guys. Don't sleep on Grux, and don't let the enemy team Grux get ahead, because he will dive on your mid laner and delete him before they know what's happening. I like this order for the carries. Yeah, I like this order for the carries. Drongo's the strongest. Grim's still up there, and Sparrow's right there with him. I like this order for the mids, and I like FaZe as kind of a lower end A tier pick, because, you know, realistically, how much better is your FaZe going to be than a really good Richter or a Steel or a Muriel? So lower end A tier pick. Decker, similar. We'll actually put her slightly above Chimera. I'm happy to see a Chimera on my team, but I'm happier to see a Decker on my team. Chimera is still very good, though. I like Chimera a lot. Aurora and Terra. It's kind of hard to order this S tier anymore because they're very different. If our team needs a tank, I'd much rather have Terra. If our team needs somebody to blow up the opponents and root them out of jungle, I'd rather have Aurora. So that's gonna do it for our updated tier list. I think this looks good to me. Let me know what you would change on it. You know, go ahead and make a comment and complain that Rampage is the best hero in the game and you think he's A tier and he's, you know, the one you play every game and you work people with him. You know, whatever you want. Go ahead and still complain that I don't have Quang and Zarus high enough. You know, I know how it is. If you're good with Zarus, you're good with Zarus. You know, it's cool. And definitely tell me in the comments that Grux belongs in the C tier, because I would love to hear it. I love to see more people saying that. I don't know if you guys are all playing in like Diamond and Plat or what, but yeah, go play any Bronze or Silver tier ranked game. Grux is going to be in it or he's going to be banned. So this is the list. Let me know what you think. I'm happy to discuss opinions. I think the only one that I would kind of be shaky on is Chimera up here in S. I think he's probably near on par with Quang and Zarus, but we'll leave him in the S tier for now because if a Chimera gets ahead, he is very strong and he has that potential to go solo Fangtooth really early in the game, or even solo Prime early in the game. And I think bringing that to the table gives your team just as much of an advantage as Zarus dropping the walls or the cage in a team fight or whatever. So that's gonna do it for the tier list. You know, give me some comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know who needs to be in the needs buffs tier, and we will talk about it. But yeah, check out some of the recent videos we've done. I did a video on testing a lot of different build options at the mid lane, building huge magic power builds and seeing from a number crunching standpoint what the most power you can make is. I also did a follow-up to that of testing those builds in the training arena. So Give that a look if you're someone who plays mid a lot or interested in building big power on a magic hero. We did the Quang armor versus health testing video, like I said. We've got a Terra solo lane video out recently. That was a lot of fun. We played against a Crunch, and Terra's just always fun when you get to get her in a ranked match. She's going to be impactful nearly every time. We've got a Drongo video. I don't play carry very much, but we got a Drongo video out now of playing him in a ranked duo lane. Drongo is just so strong that even somebody like me who doesn't play carry very much can get good use out of him, so recommend checking that out even if you're not a big carry main. And yeah, we got an Iggy and Scorch mid lane video on the way. May actually already be out by the time this video's out, but if not, you know, be on the lookout for that. I've also been playing him more in support, and I'm even considering playing him some in jungle, just, you know, for the fun of it. So thank you guys for watching again. We will see y'all in the next one.